minutes after. Let's get this party started.
All right, welcome everybody. Let's start with our antitrust. It is a policy of the OmniAir Consortium that the organization, its officers, board of directors, members, and participants in its activities shall comply in all respects with federal and state antitrust and/or fair competition laws, regulations, and rules as may be applicable. Accordingly, no activity or discussion at any OmniAir sponsored meeting or other function relating to competition or relating to practices that may restrain trade is permitted. Such prohibited topics include establishing prices, allocating markets, encouraging boycotts, regulating production, or any other understanding or agreement that may be considered as anti-competitive. And with that, welcome.
Thank you very much, Brenda, and thank you all for taking the time to join. This meeting serves not just as our monthly membership meeting, but it is the annual meeting of the membership. So as such, I'm going to highlight a few big things that happened for us in 2025. We'll welcome our newest member and our new directors who have been elected in the past week. We'll talk about a couple of certifications that were issued in November, our 2026 technical priorities, we think they are. And then we have a guest speaker, and I'm going to reserve as much of that time as possible for Justin Anderson with ITS Joint Program Office. Justin has a fantastic presentation on the sort of the state of national V2X deployments, and I think I learned something the other day, and I'm sure you guys will as well. So without further ado, let's get started. Well, first, I want to celebrate all the new members that we've added in the past year. Throughout 2025, we've added members from universities to, which I think Jim's alma mater is there, ITS community, connected vehicles, as well as some IOOs, including Pennsylvania Turnpike, Georgia Department of Transportation, and Illinois Tollway. If you are not yet an OmniAir member and you're interested in membership, please feel free to reach out to myself or Brenda or any of the team here, and we're happy to chat with you. But we have one, let's go ahead next. So also in 2025, we had some significant technical work accomplished, and I think it's just wanted to draw some attention to that. So for SCMS interoperability, we have balloted an update to our 1609.2.1 test specification that is currently on ballot. We should complete balloting actually today, and then we'll go to a 30-day IP review. But that is updating our SCMS testing, and that has been critical to SCMS interoperability. I know it was pulled aside by Utah DOT at the World Congress, and they said if it were not for the work done by OmniAir's cybersecurity working group, they wouldn't be able to pull off what they're doing now on SCMS interoperability. Misbehavior detection and reporting, we have a new test document that is Anthony Lopez is leading an activity there, and that should wrap up in January. Our tolling and emerging payment technologies group has done two test documents, one on tag parameter performance, another on environmental testing. Our technical working group, one of the exciting things is that we did a compilation of tests, sort of a scaled down version of our full certification for purposes of day one readiness testing for OBUs. We did that testing at our Florida Plug Fest, and that was used to gate which OBUs could be deployed as part of the day one readiness zone at the ITS World Congress in Georgia. So very excited about that. We're also updating test documents for safety messages, a new universal case announcement message test document is completed. We are nearing completion of our aftermarket V2X OBU certification, and that will be based on the 3215 standard. For aftermarket devices, includes new profiles for professionally installed and other types of aftermarket OBUs. And then we have several test documents that have been completed in connected infrastructure. So all of this is going to make possible, one thing I'll talk about a little bit is moving toward a second release of 2.0 for OmniAir certification in the new year. Next, please. Brenda. There we go. And we had two Plug Fests this year, very successful. One in Florida at SunTrax in Auburndale. Always fantastic to go there. That's our second time at Auburn. or sorry, at Auburndale in Florida. Florida Turnpike and Florida Department of Transportation were excellent partners there. And then we did at that Plug Fest demonstrations of VitaX based tolling. So we're excited about that. And then we went up to Michigan to the American Center for Mobility just in October, where we had some very successful interoperability and conformance testing. Next, please. So for those renewing for 2026, we've adjusted the prices slightly. So you'll see slightly different from 2025. But we do have various tiers. Executive membership is for those that are interested in leadership positions, both at the board and chairing working groups. Sustaining membership is for those that are certifying a lot of devices or test equipment or labs, and it's an all-inclusive fee, is unlimited certifications for that. So if you're interested in any of these, let us know. Also, we do have a different tier of sustaining membership that's inclusive of just PlugFest, but no certifications, slightly lower price point. Next, please. So I don't know if we have anyone here from Indra. Do we have anyone from the Indra group? So based in Madrid, Indra is a large systems integrator, and they have work in defense and in infrastructure and energy and a number of different areas. In the United States, they are very active in supporting tolling organizations, and they are conducting one of the first in the nation pilots of VitaX-based tolling in Charlotte, North Carolina, with North Carolina Turnpike Authority. And we're very excited to have Indra as our newest member. They will become active starting in January, and we're just really, really excited to have them as part of the membership. Next, please. Would like to welcome and congratulate our newly elected board members and re-elected directors. Do we have Stacia Ritter on the call? So Stacia is the Assistant Chief Operating Officer for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, and she has joined us as a newly elected director. And of course, we have returning directors, our chair, PJ Wilkins, who's the leader of the EasyPass Group, Frank Perry from WSP, Mike Brown from Southwest Research Institute, Maureen Bach from Oregon DOT, Henry McDonald from Keysight, and Fernando Rodriguez from DECRA. Congratulations, all OmniAir directors, and we appreciate their serving new 3-year terms. Next, please. And November was an active month for tolling certifications. We had 6 devices for neology where we awarded certifications. We believe we'll be awarding additional certifications before the end of the year, and we're doing a bunch of testing in January. We'll hope to have some announcements out early in the year for that, both on the tolling side as well as the connected vehicle side of the house. So congratulations to Neology. Next, please. And many of you may not have been aware, but over the past year and a half, we have been doing a large sole source contract with Federal Highway Administration, working with ITS Joint Program Office. And we had 6 major deliverables. We are finalizing work right now on the 5th and final of the tasks on the assessment of a new radio layer testing. We're very excited about that. We'll be making a delivery of that in the next day or two. And that concludes what I think has been a great partnership with FHWA and USDOT. And as I won't discuss in much detail, but we expect to doing significant work with USDOT in the coming year. And we'll have more to say about that in January. Next, please. So what is next for OmniAir? What can you get involved in? We had some great discussions at our September board meeting. Our coordinating council met in person, talked about technical priorities. We also had a meeting in last week in Austin, and this is what the board came up with. These are really the major priorities for next year. VitaX tolling certification, as many of you may be aware, some of the spectrum that's currently being used for electronic toll collection is under some stress and may be rebanded. The tolling industry is looking at alternatives. One of the primary alternatives being considered is VitaX-based tolling. I mentioned that we demonstrated that one of our plug vests. We will have and there is an ongoing pilot in North Carolina. We know that several of our member tolling agencies are planning to do projects in the next year. Randy Roebuck leads a SAE working group on that. And so our goal for 2026 is to launch the world's first certification program for 3217 compliant tolling equipment, OBUs, and RSUs. Network V2X certification, if anyone attended the World Congress, saw the demonstrations, one thing that struck me is how many of those demonstrations were network-based solutions. And clearly, we're going to live in a world of blended network and direct V2X. And I know Justin will talk a little bit about that in his presentation, but we're going to have a big new initiative on that. We've asked an individual to lead that activity, and we'll make an announcement on that in January. But we're very excited about that. If you're interested in contributing to that and you have cellular expertise, please reach out. Sensor certification, Nick Hegemeyer is spearheading an activity in the RSU group to look at requirements and certification for some of the non-RF equipment that is part of a connected intersection and interacts with V2X messages, the sensor data sharing message. We also have a work stream on that. That will be a big and new initiative. And I just got off of a call on cellular-based electronic conspicuity. That is an area we are going to start exploring. We're creating a new working group to just begin an exploration of that activity. There's other work streams that are happening in the federal space on this, but OmniAir is going to start dipping our toe in the water. Mike Brown of Southwest Research Institute will chair this activity in the new year. And of course, we have plug fests, readiness events, and workshops on timely topics. We are looking at our first workshop on V2X tolling in the spring and two plug fests, and then doing a meeting tomorrow to make plans for our first plug fest of the year. So we'll have more announcements. Stay tuned. And then finally, go to the last slide, if you could. We are moving toward what we're calling a release 2.0 for our OBUs and RSUs. We launched our certification program for CV2X OBUs in 2021 and RSUs the following year. And there have been quite a few standards updates. Some are still in balloting that we've been reflecting in our test documents, but we really haven't reflected all of that in our release, what we require for certification. So that's a process the various working groups are going to be going through and figuring out what's in and out. Our hope is to have that compilation ready for the fall PlugFest testing and then a launch of the program sometime in Q4. And with that, I think we are going to move on to our guest speaker, Justin Anderson, ITS Joint Program Office. Justin really needs no introduction. But you just had a fantastic presentation to the pooled fund study yesterday, and I thought, boy, that's going to be something our members want to hear.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so yeah, let me share my screen. Hopefully folks can see it. Unfortunately, my camera's not working, so but um, but yeah. So originally, this is actually my colleague JD Schneeberger's program. He is on vacation this week, though, so you get me. But essentially, what we've been trying to do is capture sort of what is the current state of V2X deployments across the country. And what you'll see up front at the beginning is direct V2X focused, but we'll talk about it later. We are trying to capture network V2X focused deployments as well, but it's a little bit trickier. So, and I'll tell you a little bit about sort of our thoughts and where we're going with that. But that's very much still sort of a work in progress. So, just to start, my colleague JD leads a V2X cohort. It's open to any deployment agency. We've limited it to just state or local infrastructure owner operators at this point. So if you're a state or local infrastructure owner operator, please reach out to myself or JD. We're happy to add you to the group. I also lead an interoperable technical working group that's open to everybody, vendors, deployers, systems integrators, whoever. And in that group, we actually get into much more technical detail. The V2X deployment cohort is a much higher level, but we are tracking around 71 folks participating or groups participating now. You can see all of the ones that we have participating on the map there. So 71 across 35 states and DC. It's really exciting. Again, we keep it pretty high level, but we also do give the opportunity to for industry players to come in and brief. And I know an exciting one I think coming up for folks that are interested is JD has been reaching out to the different SCMS providers. He's going to have an SCMS providers VDEX cohort, I think probably in January or February of next year. So that's one great activity. If you went to ITS World Congress, you likely saw this map. We had it in our booth. It was on the floor. We've been working on this for a very long time. And this is as best as we can, as best as we know, the most accurate, up-to-date map of all of the V2X deployments across the country. Um, and as you can see here, we are trying to track network V2X as well as direct V2X. Um, and the more exciting thing I think for everyone is that this graphic was just sort of the starting point. JD is actually turning this into an interactive website. We want it to be sort of if you've used the ITS deployment evaluation website, where it'll have a map of all the different ITS sort of technologies that different state or local agencies use, and any deployment evaluation sort of documentation around those deployments of ITS. You can go in, you can click on the location, it'll list all the documents associated with that. We're trying to take that sort of same approach to this website. So what we're hoping to do is list all of these deployments, and then if you clicked on one, it would open up and it would give you sort of locations of devices, but also any documentation associated with them. So any of the sort of the Vita Accelerator grant winners, any of the Smart Grant winners that have documentation sort of contractually required, we will be trying to link to all of that documentation in the website so that when you click on it, it'll be able to you'll be able to bring up any documentation, so concepts of operation, systems requirements, things like that. Not all the documentation is published from the site. Some of it, like the procurement type documentation, is obviously more sensitive. But anything that is publicly available, we're going to try and link to it. And so we really want it to be sort of a very interactive website. We're also sort of proactively reaching out. We know that there's a lot of state and locals that are sort of ahead of the game. They've been coming up with their own sort of guidance documents, some of their own documentation that they've used on how they're deploying the V2X systems and some practices, installation procedures, things like that. So anybody that's willing to share that or at least share links to that information, we're going to try and include that as well. So it's really exciting. But I think, what's great is like is the scale here that we see, right? Like it truly is across the country at this point. We have lots of deployments of V2X and we're hoping to keep accelerating that. Um, as we move forward. So RSU deployments across the country. This is information that we're pulling directly from the FCC's ULS database. So caveat there is some of these numbers may be off in that they might not, the license may still be valid, but the devices might not be turned on. But as far as we know, we think these are pretty accurate devices. Obviously, some of these numbers will fluctuate. They do include DSRC and LTE V2X at this point still. So you'll probably see Georgia's numbers drop a little bit at the end of 2026, probably. But then, as you'll also see in a couple slides, they're trying to replace all of that with LTE V2X. So they may not be dropping for too long. Um, but hopefully, what you see here is that there are some state and local agencies that have a lot of equipment out there. Obviously Georgia is leading the way right now. Florida, not too far behind. In fact, that's where we think, Georgia might slip behind Florida when they have to turn off their DSRC. But they, like I said, they're continuing to install LTE V2X to replace those DSRC devices. So we'll see that likely come forward. What's great is you can see sort of that I-80 corridor here, and how many devices we have now across I-80 here in Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah areas. Really, just really great highway locations of RSUs. Again, this is all pulled directly from the FCC's ULS database. We actually we actually pull information from there on a monthly basis. Another caveat I will make is the ULS database was shut down during the government shutdown. So people couldn't add any licenses, and they weren't, and FCC folks that were processing that information weren't processing any new licenses. So again, we might be, a little bit behind with some of the numbers there. We might see some jumps in January and February as the FCC database sort of catches up with any lag in devices. And we know that especially the V2X accelerator sites, they have been installing a lot of devices. So we're expecting those numbers to go up here, to continue to go up over the next couple months. So 2025, what we're seeing of sort of new RSUs registered. Obviously, again, like I mentioned, Georgia installing new RSUs for LTE V2X to replace some of their DSRC RSUs. We have Florida also installing a lot of RSUs. Maine put in a request for a number of licenses. In New Jersey, Maryland, Clark County, Washington are also have been adding devices. And like I said before, you'll soon, because I've been on calls, you'll see Texas, Utah, and Maricopa County will be added. So Arizona will be added to this probably in the next couple months. We know that they've been out installing devices, and so you'll likely see those three states pop up here and continue through 2026. Um, and I think Phoenix is on the hook for around 750 RSUs. So it'll be a very big deployment of roadside units in Maricopa County. Um, What's our coverage across the top metro areas? Well, what we've found is that we have 41 of the 75 top metropolitan areas have at least one RSU installed, or at least one, RSU licensed location. Again, that's great. We're over halfway of with this top 75 metro areas playing around with V2X equipment at a minimum. Obviously, some state and local, some cities have more than others. Obviously, Atlanta probably leading the pack with a number of RSUs. But again, very exciting that we have, over half of the major metropolitan areas at least starting to install one or two RSUs. Again, we're hoping to see that continue to accelerate. Would love to see all 75 at some point in the next few years. And that's sort of really our goal here is to use this to track where we are and to try and get other folks, to continue to accelerate. Maybe get some of those folks that aren't, the 34 locations that aren't the 34 metro areas that don't have any RSUs. See if we can get them to play around with it. And at the end of the briefing, I'll also have a couple slides on some of our resources that I like to continually brief, because every time I brief it, there's people that haven't heard of some of these resources, and I think they're really good, and we really want folks to use them. So we have mechanisms for those the 34 that aren't represented yet to hopefully play around with the technology a little bit cheaper, not having to make a full commitment right away. So where are these RSUs deployed? Most of them, obviously, signalized intersections, 83%, but 17%, that's a pretty good number on highways. And so, how many miles covered do we have? And so, urban and rural, for because folks wanted sort of a distance, like how much of the roadway was covered. What we've done is for roadside unit coverage, we've estimated around 1,000 meters. Obviously, in urban areas, may not be, you might not get 1,000 meters, but on highways, without where you don't have a lot of obstructions, 1,000 meters is very reasonable. In all the testing that my program has done with clear line of sight, 1,000 meters plus is the norm usually, and that's even at vehicle mounted antenna heights. So with RSUs mounted close to the maximum, you can see 1,200 meters sometimes. So again, we were sort of keeping it in the 1,000. It's a nice easy round number to work with, and so this is the sort of the number of miles covered by the RSUs that we have deployed. Again, not the most perfect measure, but something that we at least are using as a starting point. And as I mentioned, we're constantly sort of trying to think of new ways to capture this and display this type of information as we move forward. So who has sort of the biggest deployments? Again, if you saw the previous slide, it matches pretty closely. You'll see here again Georgia on top, largest number of devices, also biggest amount of mileage covered for their state. Again, these are the numbers that we have. Again with that 1,000 meter broadcast coverage assumption. And as we said, we're hoping to continue to see this grow. We definitely will in the connecting the West, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming. They will continue. Colorado and Utah are continuing to deploy some new RSUs. So we know their coverage will continue to increase. As I mentioned before, Georgia and Florida are continuing to deploy as well. So we're hopeful to continue seeing this grow. So now I want to talk a little bit about network V2X, right? What we found, and my program has done a lot of research into network V2X. In fact, we've talked with all of the mobile network operators we've worked with on these tests and the vendors, and we're pulling together sort of some results to share with the community on that testing that'll show like latency, jitter, sort of the performance that we've seen, at least where we've been doing testing. Um, and what we found is that if you have cellular coverage, these services generally work. Again, latencies may vary depending on the region, on the coverage of a specific MNO, and the specific network V2X service that you're using. However, it seems to work is the only real caveat is you just need cellular coverage. The Verizon ETX system works perfectly fine if you're on AT&T or T-Mobile or US Cellular. We have tested it with other MNO SIMs in the devices, and it works fine. The latencies are slightly different, obviously, because you're not on the Verizon network. You have more hops to go through, but it works. And so, if you were to just do a network V2X sort of map based on coverage area, this is what it would look like. But obviously, that doesn't really get to what we want. So what JD and I have been trying to work on is work with the state and local agencies to understand sort of where are they deploying these network V2X, either virtual RSUs or, in the Haas alert scenario, right? They're obviously, in order to get those alerts into the system, you have to have a state or local emergency service that has their devices on their vehicles. And so we're trying to get down to sort of that level to try and capture where network V2X really is, right? Because although you could access, the Haas alert anywhere, right? Stellantis vehicles, I believe, and Waze ingest the Haas alert warnings. Like I said, it really only works in areas where you have that emergency vehicle population with the devices in the vehicles. So that's what we're trying to get to. Again, that is proving to be a little bit more challenging. We're much more reliant on the network V2X service providers sort of to help us figure that out. And to their credit, I think they've been interested in trying to help capture this sort of information. But we wanted to try and be as accurate as we can be. So as we move along, this is one aspect where you might see some changes over time. We're going to take our best shot at trying to capture it, but it's likely, we'll continue to sort of refine the network V2X coverage as we go along. But the important thing is that we are trying to get to we are trying to capture sort of those deployments as part of this, and to really understand sort of what parts of the country, which state and local agencies have been playing around with the technology and have some service available. Um, so that's what I have on the sort of the state of the national V2X deployment plan. Let me see what comments. Um, so do the network's VDEX deployments tracked on your map include cloud-based deployments like Haas Alert? That is exactly, Ted, what we're trying to capture. We are trying to capture, like I said, Haas Alert, Verizon ETX usage. I know, I think MyoVision has a service. I know ISS has an MQTT service. So we are going to try and capture all of those different network V2X services in this map if we can. But like I said, it's a little bit trickier than the other ones are. And so over time, we're hopeful that we'll be able to work with both the vendors and the state and local agencies that are using this to really try and show exactly where those services are and how they work. All right, so let me talk a little bit about some of our technical resources that are available through the USDOT. Most of these services are sort of come through either the ITS JPO or in coordination with ITS JPO and our colleagues out at Turner Fairbanks Highway Research Center. So we have a number of technical resources we've been putting together. Obviously, we have a standards program that's led by my colleague Bob Sheehan, and we will continue to fund standards for the foreseeable future. Obviously, there's a lot of work going on there, and OmniAir has been just a great partner in being the group that can help certify that devices meet these standards. For those that do participate in my interoperable technical working group meeting, we have been developing an travel information best practices document. We're getting close, I think, to having sort of a published version of that. And I have been talking with the SCA folks about their using that document and including it in one of the SAE standards, whichever one is most relevant. I think we've talked about potentially as an annex to 2735. But we do want to get that travel information best practices into the standards group so that it becomes more of an official resource for folks. We do have V2X funding. We have SMART grants. We have Attain grants. We did have the Accelerator grant award winners. We don't have any new funding sources to announce at this time, but I will say that the new administration folks are very positive on V2X, and so we are working with them, talking with them. They're interested in opportunities of how they can help accelerate the deployments of V2X. So hopefully maybe in the not too distant future we'll have some other potential funding mechanisms. My program has been doing a lot of testing of network V2X. Like I said, we'll hopefully have a presentation, and I'd be happy to come back to this group and give that once we've got it all put together. But it's very, very good information on sort of the performance that we're seeing today, which was actually pretty surprising. It's much better than I thought. Latencies are actually very reasonable. For me, it's more of the reliability of the Vita of cellular that's sort of the sticky point in the safety aspect. But it was actually very interesting research, and we have a lot of tools that we've enabled to do that testing that we're also in this process of open sourcing and making available to the community. FCC licensing, my program also handles all of the FCC and spectrum related topics. So if you or anybody needs help working through the FCC licensing process, please feel free to reach out to me. We're more than happy to get on a call and help talk you through it. Or if you have questions for the FCC, I know Randy and the OmniAir community has provided a lot of great comments that we've worked through with the FCC on some of their test procedures for the FCC certification testing. So it's also a great opportunity. We do have monthly meetings with the FCC, and we can bring up questions. So if you do ever have any questions for the FCC, we're happy to bring them to them. We are working on some standards briefings. Some standard briefings on different topics like signal priority and preemption, travel information message, vulnerable road user safety. Those are all going to be part of the Smart Community Resource Center. JD is leading that effort as well, and that's in the process of being of review to be published again soon. So hopefully we'll have the Smart Community Resource Center back up, and that's really going to be our focal point for a lot of our V2X technical materials and information. So be on the lookout for that. We're hopeful soon in the new year we'll be able to get that up again, and then be able to start posting some new documentation and new guidance there. And I'll also say that we don't have any time frame yet, but we are working on a national deployment plan update. There were some of the new executive orders with the new administration require us to make some changes to the document. We're also taking that opportunity to look at some of the goals that were set that maybe weren't super realistic. And there's a couple that when we went to try and figure out how we were going to track them, the way they were worded made it really difficult to track, to come up with metrics to see if we're actually meeting those goals. So you might see some tweaking to the goals as well. But we are hopeful that in the not too distant distant future, we'll have a new national deployment plan out, yeah, so we're working on it. We've heard that feedback quite a bit from state and locals, from vendors, from the OEMs that they need that national deployment plan. So we are working on that. Hopefully that'll be out, like I said, sometime in early 2026. Um, for those that don't know, we also have an equipment loan and help desk program that's run out of Turner Fairbanks. We have a number of models of roadside units. We have onboard units. We have packet sniffers. Mostly, I think at this point we have the Iteris V2X Connect tablet, and then we have some signal spectrum analyzers. We have some spectrum generators. We can generate spat map. We have cave in the box kits, which is basically signal controller V2X hub and RSU that we can send out to sort of a mobile signalized, connected intersection for testing around with. Obviously, it doesn't have everything, like it doesn't have all the conflict monitors and things, devices that would be in a full ITS or ATC cabinet. But it's got sort of the key equipment. All of that stuff is open, freely available. I will just say the spectrum analyzers and the packet sniffers tend to be fairly popular devices. So sometimes they're all checked out and there's a waiting list. But we always have roadside units. We always have board units. We're always happy to help out. You can submit any sort of technical question and we'll look into it and get back to you. We have relationships with most of the vendors, so we can reach out to them and get feedback and help troubleshoot issues. So again, if you have any, the email for that is CAV Support Services. I'll put it in the chat when I'm done talking. At dot.com or .gov. That's the website. That's the email. You just shoot an email to that email address, and we'll help you out. And like I said, there's V2X open source tools that we are continuing to maintain. We have a map RGA tool. We have a TIM tool, the V2X hub, and ITS telematics tool. And the other tool that we'll be adding to that soon. Is the CVMech app that my program developed for the network V2X testing. If you went to the ITS World Congress demos, if you've seen the 5GA demos, the application that does a lot of the network V2X stuff, that's our CVMech app. We're in the process of open sourcing that. I think Verizon's looking at our source code just to make sure we don't have anything sensitive in there. When we developed the app, Verizon was their service was not commercial yet, so we had to protect the source code a little bit more. We think we're good, and we haven't heard any complaints from Verizon yet. So we're hopeful in early 2026 that software will be open and available. And I will say the V2X Hub, I think, is a great example of what we would love the community to do with that. I think the V2X Hub has been built into Q-Free controllers. I think Unix has built V2X Hub software into their RSUs, and I know Intel has been using it in a product that they're putting together. So we love when folks use the software. We love I was telling the Connected Vehicle Pool Fund Study, please steal our code. It's open source for a reason. We want folks to use it. So when the CVMech app software gets out there, please feel free to use it. In my opinion, R&D also stands for rip off and duplicate. So so please feel free to take any of these resources and use them in your commercial products or in your operational deployments, however you see fit. And that is almost the end. One last thing, we do the V2X PCB program, or the JD's PCB program is still moving forward. We've had a lot of travel restrictions on us, so we haven't been able to do as much in-person training as we have done previously. So we've been taking our foundational V2X 101 training and we've been making it into a self-paced web-based training. We've also been developing a V2X 200 level training, so sort of that next level of detail down where you get into sort of nuances of how you configure devices, bench testing, the SCMS enrollments, things like that, like getting into some of the more nitty-gritty details. We've been working on that training. I think we have a pretty good draft. At this point, it's really we're just trying to figure out how we can deliver it and what's the best way to do that. If I had to guess, we'll probably try and do some sort of self-paced web-based training out of that uh, training as well. But we're also hopeful at some point we might be able to do a few training in-person trainings at some point in the future. So we're still hopeful we might be able to do that. Um, and that is the end of my briefing. I think I've captured most of the questions so far. Um, uh,
One
I
more
got another one.
from
Yeah,
Ted.
one
Yeah.
more from yeah. So Ted, is USDOT planning to hold more industry workshops for revisions in advance of its release? Ted, that's a great question. We've been primarily meeting with internal to the DOT for now, just to sort of make sure that understand who in the approval chain from the new administration wants to weigh in on it. I think once we have a better handle on that, then we'll figure out sort of reaching out to sort of the industry groups again, and getting their feedback. But again, unfortunately, I just don't have a good time frame at the moment. But I think at least through sort of like we did before ITS America, 5GAA, those Automotive Alliance, like those sorts of groups are groups that we'll likely reach out to, and get some early feedback before we publish. Um,
Well, feel
um,
free to send that to OmniAir as well. We're happy to provide feedback. The
Absolutely, yeah.
Excellent. That was a fantastic presentation, and I do want to open this up to the floor to any other members or attendees who have questions. Just put those in the chat box. But let me just say this: that was a very impressive amount of data collection. I learned a lot. Was there anything? What was your methodology for collecting the data? Is that sort of anecdotal,
So.
formal survey process? How did you go about getting all that info?
So the FCC ULS database is obviously sort of a baseline measure. But then JD had gone out individually to all of the VitaX cohort members and polled them individually, getting information. And so some of the numbers come directly from the deployments themselves. Um, and that's really we're trying not to use too much anecdotal information. We're trying to just use either information from official sources like the FCC, or from deployments themselves. And so, like I said, by the next summer, we're expecting to have probably close to 1,000 more from the VDAX accelerators roadside
Well,
units
well,
deployed. So it'll be it's an exciting time, Jason. I think there's still a lot more going on, and yeah, I think for everybody's you know I think knowledge is that we are gonna try and ground this as much as in ground truth as we can. So we're really trying to keep to official sources, either from the deployments themselves or from FCC.
okay, so then deviating from that just slightly, anecdotally or maybe looking forward, are you seeing some, new use cases, sort of policy drivers or use cases that maybe we didn't see in 2024 and 25? And, what do you think is kind of around the corner? What's coming?
Well, I think, and you hit on it a little bit at the beginning of the meeting, Jason. VDEX tolling, we're hearing a lot about that now. A lot of seems like a lot of interest from certain state and local agencies. I know North Carolina has been working with VDEX tolling. I believe Florida is working on some VDEX tolling applications. California is interested, and I know the 5GAA is going to have a VDEX tolling component to their February meeting. That's sort of been the one that's jumped up over I would say probably the last 6 months. We've seen a lot more in VDAX tolling, so that's very exciting. What we've heard is that the equation changes a little bit with VDAX tolling, and that can be considered by some of the OEMs as a revenue generator instead of just something that costs money. It's something that can generate them money. So it sort of changes the equation a little bit for some of the OEMs, from what we, again, anecdotal feedback that we've gotten. So that's exciting. And then, the pedestrian safety aspect is really something we've seen jumping off with these either LiDAR or these smarter camera systems that can do sensor data sharing messages,
Mhm.
and broadcast that information via an RSU. That's another very exciting capability that we've seen quite a bit. I know Georgia DOT had 5 intersections at ITS World Congress. Really impressive. If you were there during World Congress, it was interesting. During the conference, they were only detecting pedestrians, but they could actually differentiate between a pedestrian on a bicycle and a regular pedestrian. Before World Congress, when we were helping them test it, they actually were detecting everything, vehicles, and it was very interesting. One of the things my program is looking at is going to be sort of how what is the latency in that SDSM data. Because when we saw the LiDAR sensors detecting everything, um, it looked really good. It looked like what you would think a 100% V2X market penetration rate would be for about 100 meters around that intersection. Really cool. There's obviously, I think, a lot that could be done with that, right? That sort of, in my opinion, helps get to some of that chicken and the egg. Can we bootstrap V2X
Yeah.
deployments with some of these sensors, right? Creating pockets of market penetration that allow some of these safety applications to operate. So my program is going to be looking at the LiDAR sensors, advanced camera systems, and trying to really capture that performance similar to what we're doing with Network V2X, but really want to get to the point where we can say, hey, this SDSM message, if it's configured well, if it's if it's calibrated correctly, it functions as well as a basic safety message. I would love to be able to say something along those lines, and say, and really be able to say like, hey, we could do like left turn assist. You can do intersection movement assist type
Mm.
applications with an SDSM message. That would be that's sort of
I,
where one of the things I'm interested in doing moving forward.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, it really opens it up to, what we're all here for is saving lives in, very immediate way. And I know that that I'm glad to hear that aligns with some of the work we have. I know Vince and his team are working on SDMS and message testing, and separately Nick has a work stream on the sensor certification. So I think between all those things, it's going to be an exciting year. Let me open it to a broader audience. Do we have any other questions or something else in the chat box? Jason Ellis wants a copy of both decks. You could certainly have mine, Jason, but Justin, I will defer to you on the latter question.
Yeah, I think there should be no problem with you all with if you want to provide the slides to your members, Jason.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Send me a
feel
PDF and
feel free to
we'll
do
get
that.
that out there.
Currently, the slides are on the technical working group SharePoint.
We'll get them out to a broader group. Um, any final questions for Justin? Well, Justin, just thank you so much for your leadership, your technical leadership, your support for OmniAir and our PlugFest and our SCMS interoperability activities. I know there's a lot of things we could work on together next year. I hope we have that opportunity and look forward to continuing the dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. Love working with OmniAir and this technical community. So yeah, plan to keep moving forward with that.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. All right, Burkinda, do you want to close us out?
Well, this is going to be easy. I just want to say thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you very soon in the coming year. Happy 2026. We'll see you guys soon.